My brother uninvited me to Christmas, claiming his elite new friends didn't want a loser like me ruining their high-class aesthetic. He completely forgot that I paid for his children's private school and his wife's luxury car. So I canceled every payment and watched his world crumble. Before we continue today's story, we have an urgent announcement to make. Due to technical issues, we are pivoting towards another channel. Please subscribe to our new channel, Inherited Revenge. You can find the link in the video description, the pinned comment, and the collaboration tag on this video. Make sure to switch over now so you don't miss out. Thank you for your support. Now back to the story. The notification sound on my phone felt like a physical blow, mostly because my head was already pounding with the rhythm of a jackhammer. I was lying in the fetal position on my living room sofa, surrounded by a fortress of used tissues, empty tea mugs, and a bottle of prescription painkillers. 3 days ago, I had undergone an emergency appendectomy. It hadn't been a smooth procedure. There were complications, a minor infection, and a recovery time that felt like it was dragging on for eternity. I was weak, I was pale, and I felt incredibly small. I reached for the phone, my hand trembling slightly, not from emotion, not yet, but from the sheer physical exhaustion of moving. I saw the name on the screen, Carter. A small, pathetic wave of relief washed over me. Finally, my older brother was checking on me. I had texted him and his wife, Caroline, before the surgery and again when I got out. I had received a thumbs-up emoji from Caroline and radio silence from Carter. But now, he was calling. He cared. "Hey," I croaked, my voice sounding like gravel grinding together. "I'm back home. It's been rough, but—" "Riley, listen, I don't have a lot of time." Carter's voice cut through the line, crisp, energetic, and completely devoid of concern. He sounded like he was walking briskly, the background noise of a busy street filtering through. "Caroline and I are finalizing the Christmas Eve dinner list. We've got the caterers coming in an hour for a consult." I blinked, the painkillers making my brain slow to process the shift in tone. "Oh, okay. Well, I'm not sure what I can bring this year since I can't really cook yet, but I ordered those vintage wines Caroline likes for the gift exchange." There was a pause, a heavy, pregnant silence that felt sharper than the incision in my abdomen. "Yeah, about that," Carter said, and I could hear the grimace in his voice, the fake sympathy he used when he was about to do something selfish. "We're making some changes to the guest list this year. It's going to be a different vibe, very high-end. Caroline's invited the VP of marketing from her firm, and I've got 2 potential investors coming for the new venture." "That sounds intense," I whispered, shifting my legs and wincing at the pull in my side. "But I can just sit quietly in the corner. I won't be in the way. I really just need to be around family, Carter. Being alone while recovering has been hard." "Riley, look," he sighed, an impatient sound that signaled I was being difficult. "You're not listening. This isn't a family potluck. This is a networking event disguised as Christmas. Appearance is everything. And frankly, looking at how you've been lately, you don't fit the aesthetic." My breath hitched. "Excuse me." "You know what I mean," he continued, his voice taking on that lecturing tone I hated. "You work from home, you live in sweatpants, you drive a Honda. You're comfortable, but these people, they are sharks. Winners. Caroline is really stressed about making a good impression and having her sister-in-law there looking like a sick ghostwriter who hasn't brushed her hair in a week. It's just not the image we're projecting. It's no place for losers, Riley. You just embarrass yourself." The room seemed to tilt. The physical pain in my stomach was suddenly eclipsed by a cold, hollow ache in my chest. "You're uninviting me?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "From Christmas, because I had surgery and I don't wear Gucci." "I'm uninviting you because you bring the energy down," he snapped, losing the polite veneer. "We're trying to level up, Riley. You're stagnant. Just stay home, rest, pop your pills. We'll send you some leftovers if there are any. Gotta go, caterer is here." The line went dead. I stared at the black screen of my phone, the reflection showing a pale, tired woman with dark circles under her eyes. He was right about one thing: I looked wrecked. but the words echoed in my ears, bouncing around the empty walls of my paid-off house. No place for losers. I dropped the phone onto the carpet and closed my eyes, hot tears leaking out despite my best efforts to stop them. It wasn't just the rejection. It was the audacity, the sheer, blinding ignorance of it. The betrayal was worse than the diagnosis itself. For the first hour, I just cried. I grieved the brother I thought I had. I grieved the family unit I had been clinging to since our parents died 5 years ago. I lay there, letting the silence of the house wrap around me, feeling the isolation settle into my bones. But as the painkillers kicked in and the initial shock began to recede, a different emotion started to take root. It started in my chest, a low, simmering heat that had nothing to do with fever. I pulled myself up, wincing, and shuffled to the kitchen to make tea. Every step was a reminder of my physical weakness, which only served to highlight the cruelty of what Carter had just done. He knew I was alone. He knew I was in pain, and he had kicked me while I was down because I didn't fit his aesthetic. I sat at my kitchen island, clutching the warm mug, and unlocked my phone again. I navigated to Instagram. There they were. Caroline had posted a story 10 minutes ago. It was a video of their living room, my brother's living room. It was decked out in gold and white decorations. A massive tree touched the vaulted ceiling. In the background, I could hear classical music playing. "Prepping for the biggest night of the year," the caption read. "Exclusive guest list only, high life success, no negativity." I watched it loop 3 times. No negativity. That was code for no Riley. I zoomed in on the video. I saw the new leather sectional sofa I had helped them pick out. I saw the expansive bay window looking out over the manicured lawn. I saw my nephew, Rowan, running past the camera in his school uniform, the one with the embroidered crest of St. Jude's Preparatory Academy. My thumb hovered over the screen. Carter called me a loser. He called me stagnant. He said I didn't fit in with winners. I looked down at my attire, oversized gray sweatpants and a stained hoodie. To the outside world, to Carter and Caroline's shallow new friends, I probably looked like a woman who had given up. I was a ghostwriter. My name wasn't on the bestsellers I wrote. My face wasn't on the Forbes articles I structured for tech CEOs. I was the invisible engine behind other people's fame. I lived quietly. I saved aggressively. And because I lived quietly, Carter assumed I was struggling, or, at best, just getting by. He had forgotten the conversation we had 3 years ago. The one where he sat at this very kitchen island, crying into a scotch, telling me he was going to lose the house because his first startup had imploded. He had forgotten who stepped in when Caroline threatened to leave him if he couldn't maintain their lifestyle. I opened my banking app. I scrolled past my savings account, past my investment portfolio, numbers that Carter couldn't even dream of, and tapped on the tab labeled Scheduled Transfers. There they were, the lifelines. Recurring monthly transfer, $3,200 reference, Rowan and Mia tuition. Recurring monthly transfer, $850 reference, Caroline lease, Lexus. Recurring monthly transfer, $500 reference, family support groceries. I stared at the numbers. For 3 years, I had been silently propping up their success. I paid for the private school so Rowan and Mia wouldn't have to change districts. I paid the lease on Caroline's car so she could drive to her real estate showings in style. I sent extra cash for groceries that I knew they spent on dinners out, just so the kids wouldn't eat instant noodles. I did it because I loved them. I did it because they were family. Stagnant, I whispered to the empty room. Loser. A cold smile touched my lips. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a demolition expert looking at a condemned building. Carter thought he was cutting off a dead limb to make his tree look prettier. He had no idea he was actually severing the roots. He wanted a Christmas for winners. Fine, I would give him exactly that. But he had forgotten one crucial thing: winners pay their own bills. To understand why this hurt so much, you have to understand the history. Carter is 4 years older than me. Growing up, he was the golden boy. He was the quarterback, the prom king, the one with the charismatic smile that could charm a teacher into changing a grade. I was the bookworm, the quiet one, the nerd in the library. Our parents adored him, and frankly, so did I. He had a magnetic pull. When we lost Mom and Dad in a car accident 5 years ago, that dynamic shifted, but the roles remained the same in his head. He was the leader, I was the follower. The inheritance was split 50-50. I invested mine. I bought a modest house in a quiet neighborhood, maxed out my retirement accounts, and poured the rest into my business. I built a reputation in the publishing industry as the fixer, the ghostwriter you called when you had a brilliant idea but zero writing ability. My rates were astronomical, but my lifestyle was invisible. Carter burned through his inheritance in 18 months. He invested in a luxury lifestyle brand that sold overpriced watches. It failed. Then he tried to launch a tech incubator without knowing how to code. That failed. He bought a massive house he couldn't afford because he insisted that perception is reality. 3 years ago, reality came crashing down. I remember the night vividly. It was raining. Carter showed up at my door, soaked, his eyes red-rimmed. He told me everything. The credit cards were maxed out. The mortgage was 3 months behind. Caroline, who had grown up wealthy and had no intention of being anything else, was talking about taking the kids and moving back to her parents' estate in Connecticut. "I can't lose them, Riley," he had sobbed, clutching my hand. "I just need time. I have a new project. It's going to be huge. I just need a runway, please. You're the only one I can trust." I couldn't say no. I couldn't let my nephew Rowan, who was 7 at the time, and my niece Mia, who was 5, lose their home. So we made a deal, a private deal. I would cover the essentials, the tuition and the car, directly. I didn't want the money going into Carter's account where it would disappear into business expenses. I would pay the school and the dealership directly. In exchange, he promised to get a real job, stabilize his finances, and pay me back eventually. He never got a real job, he just consulted, and he never paid me back a dime. Instead, he morphed into this new version of himself. The antagonist in my life, though I was too blind to see it until today. Enter Caroline. Caroline wasn't evil, but she was deeply, profoundly shallow. She worked as a luxury real estate associate, which mostly meant she attended galas and posted photos of houses she didn't sell. She was the one who whispered in Carter's ear that they deserved the best. She was the one who looked at my Honda Civic with a curled lip and asked, "Oh, are you still driving?" That. Over the last year, their behavior had shifted from gratitude to entitlement. They stopped saying thank you when I picked up the kids. They stopped inviting me to dinner unless they needed a babysitter. Carter started making little digs about my job. "It's cute that you write little stories," he'd say at Thanksgiving. "But when are you going to get into the real business world? Scale up." I bit my tongue. I always bit my tongue. I told myself he was just stressed. I told myself he was insecure because his little sister was bailing him out. But this phone call, this no place for losers speech, this was different. This wasn't insecurity. This was contempt. I thought about the kids. Rowan, now 10, was struggling with math, and I spent 2 nights a week tutoring him over Zoom. Mia, 8, loved drawing, and I sent her professional art supplies every month. "They're going to suffer," a voice in my head whispered. "If you cut the money, the kids suffer." I hesitated. My finger hovered over the cancel button on the bank transfer for St. Jude's Academy. Then I remembered Carter's voice. "We're trying to level up. You're stagnant." He was using my money to pretend he was rich while spitting on the person providing it. He was teaching those children that their aunt was lesser than because she didn't wear designer labels. He was teaching them that love is transactional and appearance is God. If I kept paying, I wasn't helping them. I was enabling a delusion that would eventually destroy them anyway. I sat up straighter, ignoring the twinge in my stitches. It was time for Carter to learn what stagnant really felt like. It was time to introduce him to the reality he had been avoiding for 3 years. I wasn't just a sister anymore, I was the bank, and the bank was closing for the holidays. My finger hovered over the cancel button. A strange calm washed over me, displacing the earlier hurt and humiliation. It was the clarity of a surgeon preparing to excise a tumor. I tapped the screen. Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring transfer? This action cannot be undone. I tapped yes. The screen refreshed. Transfer canceled. That was the tuition for St. Jude S. $3,200 a month gone. The next payment was due in 3 days. I moved down the list. The lease on Caroline's Lexus SUV, $850 a month, due on the 15th. Cancel. Next, the family support fund, $500 a month. Cancel. I sat back in my chair, the silence of the house feeling different now. It wasn't lonely, it was potent. I had just removed nearly $5,000 of monthly income from my brother's life with 3 taps of a finger. But I wasn't done. Anger, real anger, is cold. It requires strategy. If I just stopped paying, they would eventually notice when the school called or the repo man showed up. But I wanted them to know why. I wanted them to understand exactly who they had just discarded. I opened my laptop and pulled up my work email. I had a deadline for a ghostwritten memoir for a tech CEO in Silicon Valley, but that could wait. I started a new document. I began to compile a meticulous spreadsheet. I went back 3 years in my bank statements, every transfer, every emergency loan for a business opportunity. Every time I covered a vet bill for their purebred dog, every time I paid for a networking dinner because Carter forgot his wallet. The total was staggering, over $150,000 in 3 years. I stared at the number. That was a house. That was a retirement fund. That was a life. And I had given it freely out of love while they drove around in a leased Lexus calling me a loser. I needed to be sure. I needed to know exactly how deep their delusion went. I remembered Carter mentioning a new venture with 2 potential investors. He had been vague about it, as always. I did a little digging. I knew the name of his new LLC because I had paid the filing fee for it 6 months ago. Prestige Global Holdings. Creative, right? I logged into the state's business registry, public record. The status, active, not in good standing. He hadn't filed his annual report. Then I went to LinkedIn. I found the profile of the VP of marketing Caroline was trying to impress. Her name was Jessica. I didn't know her, but we had a mutual connection, a literary agent I had worked with on a previous project. I sent a casual message to the agent. Hey, long time, hope you're well. Random question, do you know Jessica from Caroline's firm? My sister-in-law is trying to impress her this Christmas. Just curious what her deal is. The reply came back 20 minutes later. Riley, great to hear from you. Jessica? Oh God, she's notorious. Total shark. Obsessed with status. If you're not wearing the right label, you don't exist to her. Good luck to your sister-in-law. Why do you ask? Just family drama, I typed back. Thanks for the intel. So that was it. They weren't just being mean, they were terrified. They were terrified of being exposed as frauds to people who could smell desperation. And I was the visible evidence of their mediocrity. I decided to make one more move. I called the admissions office at St. Jude S. Hi, this is Riley, Rowan, and Mia's aunt, I said, keeping my voice professional. I handle the tuition payments. I just wanted to confirm the current status of the account before the holidays. One moment, please, the administrator said. I heard typing. Ah, yes, the account is current through November. The December payment is due on the 10th. We did notice a discrepancy in the extracurricular fees, though. There's an outstanding balance for the ski trip. The ski trip, I asked. How much? $2,500. It was due last week. We've sent 2 reminders to Mr. and Mrs. last name. My jaw tightened. Carter had told me the ski trip was covered by a bonus. He had lied, again. I see, I said. Well, I'm calling to inform you that I will no longer be the payer on this account, effective immediately. All future billing should go directly to my brother. I've canceled the automatic draft. There was a pause. Oh, I understand. Should I update the contact information? Yes, I said. Please remove my email and phone number entirely. And good luck. I hung up. The trap was set. The tuition was due in 3 days. The ski trip was already overdue. And Carter was busy leveling up his Christmas decorations. 2 days passed. Silence from Carter. Silence from Caroline. On the third day, December 10th, my phone rang at 10:00 a.m. It was Carter. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately, then a text, "Call me now." I waited 10 minutes, made myself a fresh cup of coffee, and then, with trembling hands that I forced to be steady, I called him back. "What?" I answered, keeping my voice flat. "What did you do?" Carter screamed. He didn't even say hello. He was in full panic mode, his voice cracking. "The school just called. They said the payment bounced. They said you removed your card." "Hello to you too, Carter," I said, sipping my coffee. "How's the Christmas prep going?" "Don't play games with me, Riley," he yelled. "I'm in the middle of a meeting. The administrator called me and said if the tuition isn't paid by 5:00 p.m. today, the kids are unenrolled for the spring semester. What the hell is going on? Did your bank screw up?" "No," I said calmly. "I canceled it." "You, what?" The silence on the other end was deafening. Why would you do that?" "Because," I said, channeling every ounce of ice I had in my veins, "I'm a loser. Remember, you told me 3 days ago. No place for losers. Losers don't pay for private school, Carter. Winners do. And since you're such a winner now, with your high-end friends and your exclusive Christmas, I figured you didn't need my stagnant money anymore." "You petty little," he sputtered, grasping for words. "You're doing this now, before Christmas? You're punishing the kids because I hurt your feelings." "I'm not punishing anyone." I corrected him. "I'm stepping back. You said I bring the energy down. You said I don't fit the aesthetic. Well, neither does my money. You can't have it both ways, Carter. You can't treat me like trash in private and use me as an ATM in public." "It's $3,200, Riley," he shouted. "I don't have that kind of cash sitting around. I'm liquidating assets for the business launch." "Then maybe you shouldn't have bought a $500 tree topper," I said. "Or maybe you should ask your new investors. I'm sure they'd love to help a winner like you." "You are ruining Christmas," he shrieked. "Caroline is going to flip. Do you have any idea how much stress she is under?" "Actually, I do," I said. "Because I just canceled the lease payment on her Lexus too. That's due on the 15th. You might want to let her know." "You B***, he screamed. "You can't do that. That car is in her name." "And the payments were coming from my account," I reminded him. "Not anymore. Good luck with the aesthetic, Carter." I hung up. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst my stitches. I was shaking. It felt terrible. It felt amazing. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up again. Caroline. I stared at it. She never called me. She only texted when she needed something. I answered. "Riley, what is going on?" Her voice was tight, controlled, the voice she used when she was trying to sound reasonable to a child. "Carter is hyperventilating in the kitchen. He says you cut us off. Is this a joke?" "Hi, Caroline," I said. "No joke, I'm just respecting Carter's wishes. He was very clear that I don't fit in with your new lifestyle. I didn't want my loser money to taint your success." "Oh my God, stop being so dramatic," she snapped, the mask slipping. "He didn't mean it like that. He's just stressed about the party. Look, just turn the payments back on and you can come to Christmas. Okay? We'll make space. We can put a chair at the end of the table." I actually laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "You'll make space? You'll put a chair? Caroline, do you hear yourself? You think I'm doing this to get an invite back to your superficial little party?" "Then what do you want?" she demanded. "An apology? Fine, I'm sorry Carter was rude. There, Happy, now fix the tuition. If Rowan gets kicked out of St. Jude's, we will be the laughing stock of the club. That's what this is about, I said softly. The club, not Rowan's education, not my feelings, the club. This is the real world, Riley, she yelled. Appearances matter. We are building a brand. We don't have the luxury of sitting around in sweatpants feeling sorry for ourselves. We have to project success to attract success. Well, I said, then you better start projecting a way to pay for it, because I'm done. The bank of Riley is closed. Permanently. You will regret this, she hissed. You are destroying this family. No, Caroline, I said. I'm just stopped paying for the costumes. The fallout was immediate and chaotic. For the next 2 days, my phone was a war zone. Carter sent a barrage of texts, alternating between begging, please, Riley, just for this month, I promise I'll pay you back in January, and threatening, I'm going to tell everyone you're mentally unstable. I'll sue you for breach of verbal contract. I screenshot everything. Then came the flying monkeys. Our distant aunt, who I hadn't spoken to in a year, called to tell me I was being cruel to the children. Carter had obviously spun a story that I had snapped and was trying to hurt them out of jealousy. He says you're on heavy painkillers and not thinking straight, Aunt Brenda said, her voice dripping with concern. He's worried about you, Riley. He says you threatened to ruin Christmas. Did he mention he uninvited me because I wasn't aesthetic enough? I asked. Well, he said you were unwell, she hedged, and that it might be too much for you, but to cut off the children, that's low, Riley. Ask him about the tuition, Brenda, I said. Ask him who has paid it for 3 years. Ask him why he doesn't have $3,000 to his name. I didn't wait for her answer. I blocked her too. But the real escalation happened on December 14th. I received a notification from my credit card company. Fraud alert. Attempted charge of $5,000 at Bergdorf Goodman. My blood ran cold. I logged in. It was my emergency card. The one I had given Carter 2 years ago for absolute emergencies only when his car broke down in the middle of nowhere. I had forgotten he still had the number. He was trying to buy, what, gifts, or maybe something to resell for cash. I called the bank immediately. That's not me, cancel the card, mark it as stolen. We'll take care of it, ma'am, the agent said. Since the physical card wasn't present, we can block the transaction. He had tried to steal from me, after everything. That was the moment the last shred of guilt evaporated. This wasn't just a brother being a jerk. This was financial abuse. This was a man who felt so entitled to my resources that he would commit a crime to maintain his facade. I needed to protect myself. I called my lawyer, an old friend from college named Sarah. I need to formalize the loan, I told her, my voice shaking with rage. I have the spreadsheet, the $150,000. It was always discussed as a loan, even if we didn't sign papers. I have texts where he says, I'll pay you back. Can we put a lien on his house? If you have the texts, we can certainly send a demand letter, Sarah said, her lawyer voice sharp and professional. It might not get you the money back immediately, but it will freeze him. If he tries to refinance or sell, he'll have to deal with you first. Do it, I said. Draft it today. Send it to arrive on Christmas Eve. Riley, Sarah softened. Are you sure, Christmas Eve? He wanted a high-end Christmas, I said. Nothing says high-end like a legal courier. While Sarah worked on the legal side, I did a little more digging into Caroline. If Carter was desperate enough to use my credit card, Caroline must be desperate too. I went back to the VP of marketing. She was trying to impress. I looked at the guest list for the exclusive party Carter had bragged about. He had foolishly shared a Google Doc with me weeks ago for input before uninviting me. I saw the names, Jessica, the VP, the 2 investors, a few neighbors from their gated community. I realized something. These people didn't know the real Carter and Caroline, they only knew the mask. And then I saw it. A post on our neighborhood Facebook group. I still followed their local page. Selling 2021 Lexus SUV. lease takeover, immaculate condition, need to upgrade to a larger vehicle for growing family, DM for details. Caroline was trying to offload the lease I had just stopped paying. She was trying to get someone else to take the debt before the repo man came. Growing family? That was a lie. She was scrambling. They were both scrambling. The facade was cracking, and they were trying to use duct tape to hold it together. But the biggest blow was yet to come. My phone pinged. It was a DM from an account I didn't recognize. "Hi, Riley. You don't know me, but I'm the mother of one of Rowan's classmates at St. Jude S. I heard a rumor that Rowan might not be coming back next term. My son is devastated. They are best friends. Is everything okay?" Carter hadn't told the school had told the parents. The rumor mill had started. "Hi," I typed back, choosing my words carefully. "I'm afraid there are some financial restructuring issues in my brother's household. I'm no longer handling the tuition, so it's up to them." I hit send. The truth was out. The whisper network of the elite mothers would do the rest. By Christmas Eve, everyone on that guest list would know that the winners were broke. I sat back, the adrenaline fading into a deep, heavy exhaustion. I looked at the calendar. Christmas was 10 days away. They had uninvited me to save face. Now, they were going to lose face in the most public way possible, and I wouldn't even have to be there to see it. Or so I thought. Christmas Eve arrived with a biting chill that seemed to seep through the glass of my car windows. I sat parked down the street from the house, my brother's house, or at least the house the bank still technically owned, watching the snow accumulate on the hood of my Honda. I wasn't invited. I knew that. But I had two presents in the backseat wrapped in simple brown paper, a high-end art set for Mia and a specialized coding kit for Rowan. I refused to let my brother's ego rob his children of a relationship with their aunt. My plan was simple: drop the gifts at the door, text Carter that they were there, and leave before I could be humiliated again. But as I watched, a black town car pulled up. A woman in a stunning emerald coat stepped out. It was Jessica, the VP of marketing. Then another car arrived, a sleek Tesla, the investors. The house was glowing. Every window was ablaze with warm, golden light. I could see silhouettes moving inside, holding wine glasses. It looked perfect. It looked expensive. It looked like a lie. I took a deep breath, grabbed the gifts, and stepped out into the cold. My boots crunched loudly on the frozen pavement. I walked up the driveway, passing Caroline's Lexus. It was still there. She must have hidden it in the garage earlier to avoid the repo scanners, but with the party guests taking up the driveway, she had been forced to park it on the side. I reached the front door and raised my hand to knock. Before my knuckles could graze the wood, the door swung open. It was Carter. He was wearing a velvet tuxedo jacket that probably cost more than my first car. His face fell the moment he saw me. "What are you doing here?" he hissed, stepping out and pulling the door partially shut behind him to block the view of the party. "I told you, no place for." "I'm just dropping off gifts for the kids, Carter," I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline hammering in my chest. "I'm not staying, just take them." I shoved the packages toward him. "Who is it, Carter?" a voice called from inside. It was a woman's voice. Sharp, commanding, Jessica. Carter panicked. He couldn't make a scene in front of her. He forced a tight, grimacing smile and opened the door wider. It's Riley, my sister. She just stopped by for a second." He grabbed my arm, his grip painful, and pulled me into the foyer. "Smile and leave," he whispered in my ear. "Don't you dare embarrass me." The warmth of the house hit me, smelling of pine, cinnamon, and expensive catering. The foyer opened directly into the living room, where about 15 people were mingling. The conversation stopped. All eyes turned to me. I was wearing jeans, a thick wool coat, and a scarf. I looked exactly like what I was, a woman who had just come from the cold, not a socialite. "Riley," Caroline appeared from the kitchen, holding a tray of hors d'oeuvres. Her eyes went wide with horror. She looked at my boots, then at her pristine white rug. We weren't expecting you." I was just leaving, I said, looking directly at her. Just dropping these off for Rowan and Mia. Wait a moment, Jessica stepped forward. She was intimidatingly elegant, holding a glass of champagne. She squinted at me, then at Carter. Riley, as in, Riley last name. Carter laughed nervously. Yes, she's my little sister. She's in between things right now. Struggling a bit, you know how it is. We try to help her out where we can. He was doing it again, painting me as the charity case to elevate himself. Jessica ignored him. She walked right up to me. You're the ghostwriter, aren't you? The one who structured the Horizon memoir and the Tech Tierra piece. The room went silent. Carter blinked. What? No, she just writes, blogs, little stories. She's the best structural editor on the East Coast, Jessica said, her tone shifting from social politeness to professional reverence. My boss tried to hire you last year. You cost a fortune. He said your waiting list was 6 months long. I smiled, a small, genuine smile. 8 months now. It's nice to meet you, Jessica. Carter's face drained of color. The narrative was slipping. I think you're mistaken. Riley relies on us for. Actually, Carter, I interrupted, my voice carrying clearly through the silent room. I think we should stop pretending. Riley, don't, Caroline warned, her voice trembling. Don't what? I asked, turning to her. Don't tell them that I paid for the wine they're drinking or the deposit on the catering. She's on medication, Carter shouted, his laugh high-pitched and frantic. She's confused, post-surgery delirium. I'm not confused, I said, reaching into my bag. I pulled out a thick envelope. It wasn't the gifts. It was the legal packet my lawyer had drafted. And I'm not a loser, Carter. Losers don't fund your lifestyle for 3 years while you pretend to be a tycoon. I walked over to the side table, right next to the investors, and placed the envelope down with a heavy thud. That is a formal demand for repayment of the $150,000 I've loaned you since 2021, I said, addressing the room but looking at Carter. Including the tuition for St. Jude, that you told everyone you paid with your bonuses, and the lease on the Lexus outside. You're lying, Carter screamed, lunging forward. One of the investors, a tall man in a gray suit, stepped in front of him. Let her speak, the investor said, his eyes narrowing at Carter. I canceled the payments 3 weeks ago, I continued, feeling lighter with every word. Because you told me I didn't fit your aesthetic. You were right, I don't. I pay my bills. Suddenly, the room was bathed in pulsing orange and yellow light. It was coming from the bay window. We all turned. Outside, a massive tow truck had backed into the driveway. The flashing lights reflected off the snow, casting a chaotic, strobe-like glow over the perfect Christmas tree. The driver hopped out, holding a clipboard. He walked up to the front door, which was still partially open, and knocked loudly on the glass. Looking for a Caroline last name? The driver shouted, his voice muffled but audible through the glass. Order for repossession on a 2021 Lexus. Key or hook, lady, your choice. The silence in the living room was absolute. It was heavy, suffocating, and total. Caroline dropped the tray of hors d'oeuvres. The crash of breaking ceramic and the splatter of shrimp cocktail was the only sound. Jessica looked at the window, then at the demand letter on the table, and finally at Carter. Her expression wasn't angry, it was pitying. I think we should go, she said quietly to the investors. No, wait, Carter scrambled toward them, grabbing the investor's SL. Eve, it's a misunderstanding, a banking error. Riley set this up. She's trying to sabotage the deal. The investor shook Carter's hand off his suit jacket as if it were covered in slime. The only error here, Carter, the man said coldly, was assuming we wouldn't do our due diligence. We knew about the LLC filing status. We just wanted to see if you'd be honest about it. Clearly, honesty isn't your strong suit. They walked out. They stepped right over the spilled shrimp cocktail. They walked past the stunned Carter. They walked out the door, past the repo man who was currently hooking up the Lexus, and into the cold night. I stood alone in the center of the room. The high society crowd was putting on their coats, eager to escape the awkwardness. Carter turned to me. He looked small, he looked aged. The velvet jacket suddenly looked like a costume from a cheap play. "You ruined it," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "You ruined everything." "No, Carter," I said, buttoning my coat. "I just turned the lights on." The aftermath wasn't explosive. It was a slow, pathetic deflation. I didn't stay to watch the car get towed. I didn't stay to hear Caroline screaming at Carter. I walked out to my Honda, sat in the driver's seat, and just breathed. For the first time in years, the weight on my chest, the secret-keeping, the financial stress, the constant need to protect them from reality, was gone. I drove home, made myself a cup of hot chocolate, and watched a movie. I spent Christmas Day alone, and it was the most peaceful holiday I had ever had. In the weeks that followed, the house of cards collapsed completely. Without my funding and with no investors, Carter couldn't sustain the mortgage. They put the house on the market in January. It sold quickly, but after paying off the bank and the liens, including mine, which Sarah had filed promptly, they walked away with almost nothing. The Prestige Global Holdings dream died a quiet death. Caroline moved back in with her parents in Connecticut for a while, taking the kids. Carter moved into a small, 2-bedroom apartment near the city center. He finally got a job, a real job in sales. It wasn't glamorous. He wasn't a CEO. He was a mid-level account manager selling HVAC systems. I didn't speak to them for 3 months. I needed the distance. I needed to heal from the realization that my brother had viewed me as a resource rather than a sibling. But in April, I got a text, not from Carter, from Rowan. "Can you come to my soccer game? Dad says he can't make it." I went. I sat on the bleachers, watching my nephew run around on a muddy public school field. He wasn't wearing the St. Jude's uniform anymore. He looked scruffier, but he also looked happier, lighter. When the game ended, he ran over to me. Mia was there too, sitting in the grass drawing in the sketchbook I had sent her. "Aunt Riley," Rowan hugged me, getting mud on my coat. I didn't care. "Hey, buddy," I said, squeezing him back. "Dad says you're rich," Rowan said, pulling back and looking at me with innocent curiosity. "Is that true?" I laughed. "I'm comfortable, Rowan, because I work hard and I don't buy things I don't need." "He says he's sorry," Mia piped up, not looking up from her drawing. "He says he was stupid." I looked up and saw Carter standing by the parking lot fence. He was wearing a windbreaker and khakis. He looked tired. He had gained a little weight and his hair was thinning. He wasn't the golden boy anymore. He was just a guy. He saw me looking and raised a hand in a hesitant wave. He didn't come over. He kept his distance, respecting the boundary I had set. I didn't wave back, but I nodded. Acknowledgement. Not forgiveness, not yet, but acknowledgement that he was finally living in reality. I turned back to the kids. "Do you guys want ice cream? My treat." "Yes," they screamed in unison. As we walked toward my car, my reliable, paid-off Honda, I realized something important. Carter had been right about one thing: that Christmas party was no place for losers. But standing here, holding my niece's hand, knowing my mortgage was paid and my conscience was clear, I knew exactly who the winner was. I wasn't the one who needed an audience to feel valuable. I wasn't the one who needed a velvet jacket to feel important. I was Riley. I was the fixer. And for the first time in my life, I had fixed my own life first. And that was the best aesthetic of all.